All right, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for being here at our work readiness workshop. This is put together by our career education counselors, including myself and a full team. I'll put the link in the chat so you can see who's part of our team. But more importantly, I want to introduce our guest speaker today, who is joining us. Terry Steele is currently a senior human resources analyst and employment services and training specialist with the city of Pasadena. She helps internal clients navigate the hiring process to avoid legal pitfalls and find the right candidates. She has over 15 years of experience in human resources. And includes working in the private sector, in the retail industry, the public sector, in education and municipalities. And she's highly skilled in recruiting, policy analysis, training and development, public speaking, HRIS, and applicant tracking systems. In 2020, she became HR consultant for Futures in Motion. That's a logo you'll see on the screen as well. Ms. Steele holds an AA in psychology from Orange Coast College, a BS in psychology with a minor in speech communications from the California State University, Fullerton, and an MS in human resources management from Chapman University. And last but not least, an IPMA SCP designation from IPMA HR. You'll have to tell us a little bit about those, Terry, as well as applicant tracking systems. A lot of students I work with don't know what those are, so we'll have you explain that as well. But without further ado, welcome. Thank you for being here, and I will pass it off to you.
Thank you for the introduction, Shelby. And yes, I'm happy to be here to help students navigate the recruitment and selection process, as I've been doing this for over 15 years. And I'm constantly talking to myself, like, I wish they had me to talk to them before they applied. So I'm glad to be able to talk to you guys before you apply. In terms of my certifications, IPMA so there's a international HR group that actually is in DC that lobbies and negotiates. So for example, with the COVID situation, there's sick leave that was given to employees if they had COVID and had to be off. So the IPMA group is in there lobbying for you. You can't just have force people to be off work and not give them an opportunity to be paid. So I have a certification under that group. That's what that is, as well as applicant tracking systems. We'll talk about keywords and all that. Those are things that an applicant tracking system does look for. But in my world, there is a human always double checking what the system does. So even though we use an applicant tracking system, which is just a fancy way of applying online, there is a human behind that. So keywords don't always get you to where you want to go. So without further ado, Shelby, we can go to the next slide and I can begin because my first slide is about keywords.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, and so Shelby has asked me to talk about, I'm a recruit, I've been in the recruiting function and I've recruited for many disciplines. And today Shelby's asked me to talk about information technology, office technology, public service, which is the fire service, and accounting. So that's what I'll be talking about today. And in the keywords, I'll just go through my slides. So in the keywords for information technology, for entry level, there's still going to be the Microsoft Office suite. Tier 1 desktop is when someone goes and comes to you and just says, oh, you forgot to click the on button, and then tier 2 is the remote, where sometimes you take over someone's computer and you're clicking around with them to help them. So it's customer service. Security, cybersecurity is a huge thing in technology today, and communicating with customers. As you can see, tier 1 and tier 2 is all about customer service. And then we get into office technology, and this is more about knowing the Microsoft Office suite to be able to do your work, because especially with this remote world, we're probably not going to get away from working from home, which means understanding the technology of Microsoft Office is going to be huge. Understanding how to navigate Teams and Zooms. I'll tell you the difference between Teams and Zooms. In Teams is usually when the organization uses that to communicate within the organization, where Zoom is used when you're in an organization is using that technology just to communicate outside the organization. So you do need to know both. And I've learned through remote working for about a year that I had to learn how both of them work. And then scanning, because everything's going electronic, understanding scanning and how to catalog when you scan, how to scan neatly. You think this is something, but I've received scanned documents from someone at the office where they're, they're sideways, and so just understanding that, because that's a frustrating piece when you're asking for something to be scanned and then you have to go back to them and say, can you scan it again, but in a cleaner version? And then email management, typically in the office technology setting, you are keeping somebody's calendar. And so knowing how to manage that email, your email and someone else's calendar. And then in public service with the fire service, just the emergency medical services, transferable skills for fire service, because you can't get the skills until you get um, into an academy, but there's a lot of skills that you can acquire that are transferable. And then EMT, that's the emergency medical technician. Those are the ones driving the ambulance. And then in accounting, Excel, Excel, Excel. I can just say, if you know it, beginning, intermediate, and advanced. If you want to get into accounting, you have to be an expert at Excel. Presenting data, and whether it's a pie chart, a bar chart, and then analyzing the data. So not just being able to click the button to create the chart, but what story is that data telling? So that's what I have for keywords for those 4 disciplines. Next slide. And then what makes an exceptional resume? Whether you're using an applicant tracking system or not, a consistent format, easy to read layout, focusing on accomplishments, and relating to the job. So I believe there is oh, relating to the job. And when I say consistent format, what I want is, I also want to say simple format, because I have easy layout, because I see resumes that people get off of Word as a template, and they have fancy graphics and all of that. You put your picture. Do not put your picture on your resume unless it's applicable for your profession. In most professions, it's not applicable. Um, and just make it simple layout, simple words, focus on accomplishments, and make it be job related. I often see where I'm reading a resume and I ask myself, did this person read the job description or even the job title? Because it's so way off base. But that is one of the most, I would say, frustrating things as a recruiter that I see most, is that people apply that and it's not job related. Okay, next slide. And then I'm going to get into, I think I'm getting into the disciplines. Yeah, specific disciplines. So if you're going for an information technology job, be specific about your experience with applicable hardware and software. So um, if you, and then be specific about troubleshooting with customers. If you have experience troubleshooting with customers, and any experience with security. Again, cybersecurity is probably the number one thing if you're going to be in an entry level IT position. And then office technology, your typing speed, be specific with your numbers. And if on average, you have to have like a minimum of 35 words per minute. But if this is the profession you want to be in, where you're supporting someone from an admin perspective, you want to get yourself up to 55 words per minute, because you want to be able to type while hearing. And that's a trick. And then Microsoft Office Suite, Excel, Word, Outlook, PowerPoint. In this, I would say get yourself to an intermediate level to be able to say that on your resume. Entry level, beginner to intermediate. You don't need to be advanced unless you're going to specialize in something like IT. Accounting. Yes, you want to be in advance. And then customer service. Next slide, please, Shelby. And when it comes to the fire service, specifically working in fire service, if you have that opportunity, demonstrates true interest in becoming a firefighter, um, fire academy, and volunteer experience. And then in the world of accounting, specific experience working with Excel's formulas, presenting experience, because sometimes, again, you have to be able to present the data that you crunch through the Excel formulas. Any audit experience and the attention to detail. And the audit experience is making sure that the data you synthesized is correct. In that. And at an entry level, you probably be the one that will be checking somebody above you's work. So that's where the audit experience and attention to detail will be very important from an entry level perspective. Okay, next slide. Okay, 5 things for entry level resumes: consistency, and that is what I kind of was a joke that I kind of prepared for was sometimes I see on a resume someone that looks like they're trying to go for all of these 4 jobs at the same time. And what I would say is if you have an interest in all 4 of the areas, create a resume for all 4 of the areas. And that way it shows a consistency in your focus, as opposed to if you're all over the place, that becomes very evident of anybody who's reviewing your resume. Show that you have a learning aptitude. You're in college right now, and show that you didn't know a skill before and now you know a skill before. And if you had any challenges, maybe not on a resume, that'd be good for answering a question, but something that was a challenge for you, you put on your resume that you're intermediate at, and then that also will help you. If it's a challenge, it'll help you say that in the interview portion, like I didn't know this, but I worked through it and now I know this, and I'm at, I went from beginner to intermediate or intermediate to advanced. Anything that's transferable skills, customer service skills, and community involvement. So anything that just shows that you know that you've met a customer's need, and any community involvement, any volunteer, any 5Ks you run, whatever. At entry level, they just want to know you're doing something more than just existing as a human being. And so just do that. Okay, next slide. And then common pitfalls. So what I see the most that frustrates me as a recruiter is a lack of effort, meaning that I can hardly read the sentence or the word because it's spelled incorrectly or the sentence doesn't flow correctly. A lack of focus, again, where you're just applying for, you just throw some stuff in a resume template and you say, well, they asked for a resume, so here it is. But so because when it's a lack of focus, and I can actually tell, what happens is you get into what's called an other pile. You never want to make it to the other pile, because the competition that made it to the pass, there may be 30, 40 people that make it to the pass, and anybody that shows a lack of effort or a lack of focus gets into that other pile, and they never really get looked at, or they get looked at later once we get through the 30 or 40 that impressed us with their presentation. And then this is one tip I want to give for any of the youth that are part of this: unprofessional emails. What I mean by that, I get homeboy 124 or that B 567, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? That's how you want me to respond to you? So right now, just do your first initial, like TS 1234 exclamation point, or TS for hire 1234. That's what I would use. But those are basic examples, but I see some crazy stuff in an email address, and that is a reflection of your character. You can have that email address in your personal life, but come up now with a professional email a Google email that you're going to use to put on your resume. Okay, and then next slide, please. Oh, okay, so these are just my closing thoughts. Remember that the main purpose of a resume is to get an interview. And so you're trying to not get in the other piles. What I'm trying to tell you, just say enough on your resume to get you to the next stage, which is the hiring manager. Because usually resumes go through recruiters first or go through an applicant tracking system first. Never include false information on your resume, because that is, as a human resource professional, we do check that. Be consistent with your format, allowing no typos or grammatical errors, and tailor your resume to the particular job you're applying for. Stay focused. That's all the thoughts I had to share with you. And I think now it's time to open up for some question and answer.
It is indeed. We're going to have students, you can use the chat to ask a question. That way since it's going to be on YouTube, we can keep it private in the chat, and I'll ask it for our lovely guests to answer. While y'all are thinking, I actually have a starting question for you. I heard a statistic that recruiters tend to spend 10 to 15 seconds looking at a resume, before they decide what pile it's in. Obviously, you can spend longer on it, but on average, that was what I saw. Have you found that to be true in your experience?
I would say, I think it takes a little bit more than 10 to 15 seconds. What takes me really easy to do is when someone's not qualified, that's a 10 to 15 second. When someone is qualified, I probably spend a little bit more time. And then and when someone's not focused or it's crazy, that's the 10 to 15 minutes. That's easy. It goes in the other. But I would say I would probably spend no more than a minute, but I can see if you're not qualified, that's how much time they spend on it is 10 to 15 minutes, and you go in the other pile real quick.
Perfect. Thank you. I don't see any questions popping up right away. So folks, think of questions, but don't worry, I have another one. So speaking of how quickly you're reviewing it and being qualified, we've had some other folks say some students don't apply if they don't meet every single one of the bullet points, listed in a job description. Would you say that if a student meets some of them, but not all of them, or maybe most of them, they should still apply for a job?
I would, as long as they do the work to convince me as a recruiter that they're qualified. We go into a recruitment saying that you're only going to find a candidate 85% qualified anyways. Nobody's 100% qualified to do any job. There's always a deficit. What you want to make sure you do is highlight what you're qualified to do. And because you don't know if what you're qualified to do is the missing link in the organization. And they already have someone that can do the other thing. So if you're good at email management, for example, but you're not that good at Excel, well, we may already have an in-house Excel expert, but we need someone to overhaul our email management group, and we'll say, oh, this person matches us. And so I would say yes, apply, but yes, put the work in for your transferable skills. Tell the story for me, convince me you're qualified.
Perfect. Thank you. And we do have another question, but I realized for the Q&A, I forgot to turn off record. So let me go ahead and stop that.